So, welcome to the first Quodlibet of the new session starting right now, 2022-2023. This is the open online forum for discussing everything related to early music within, let's say, within the, we are hosted by the European Association of Conservatories. So who are we? What are we doing here? What do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? Let's try to put these things more or less clear in a couple of minutes. The European Association of Conservatories, the AAC, has had for a long time an early music platform. Actually, the early music platform started back in 2009. So this task force that we represent now with my colleagues, with Anton, with Kelly, with Claire, and also with Bea, who is of course the coordinator, we are in a way taking up on the legacy of that early music platform. Instead of all those large events, which are also a possibility, because we also planned one in Trossingen last year, like exactly now, I think it is 1 year exactly now, more or less. And we are also trying to have this online possibility, something that we discovered, of course, like everyone else during the pandemics, but something that is a bit lower profile in the sense that it doesn't need to have so much previous organization, and it allows space for more discussion. Yeah, in many of these events, we're planning them for 2 years. Then there is like 5 minutes to discuss every topic in the end after some presentations, and things go really fast, really quick. This is not to replace those events in person, because we also want to meet in person. Of course, we want to see people, we want to meet with people, we want to discuss and go for dinner, etc., all these sort of things. But the Quodlibet is expressly designed for something a bit more informal, and so that it can foster debate, that can foster discussion. So my colleagues, you know them, they are going to present themselves, but I'm just starting from myself. My name is Isaac. I am from Spain. I teach in the Royal Conservatoire of The Hague. My colleagues in the platform, in the task force of the early music platform, are Claire Michon from Poitiers, Kelly Landerkin from the Schola Cantorum Basiliensis, and Anton Steck from the Hochschule in Trossingen. You can see all of them here already. And Beatriz, who is part of the AEC office team and acts as coordinator of the task force. The early music platform wants to foster activities like gatherings, debates, and in general activities that can help to connect. That is the key word for us. Connect whom? Connect who? Connect the higher music institutions, the institutions for higher music education. Yeah. So that is the very first thing. Of course, connecting the departments, but also not just the departments as institutions. Also connect students, connect teachers with students, students with teachers, and early music practitioners in general. The main thing would be fostering debate for these connections, yeah, and treating issues that are important for our institutions, for ourselves as teachers or students, or as simply early musicians. The task force of the early music platform of the European Association of Conservatories also has a very close collaboration with REMA, which is the European network for early music, that originally was a network for promoters, like for festivals, but it has been growing in an amazing way in the last few years. And we have with us Verle de Klerk, who will also talk about that in a minute. I think that is mostly what I wanted to say in general about the task force. One general, now all of our colleagues will talk about specific issues that they consider that are important, that they merit some discussion, some debate. But just to announce something that our task force is going to be busy with. We're going to be busy, of course, with doing these Quodlibets. We're going to be busy with our collaboration with REMA, and but we are also going to be busy contacting departments, trying to get updated contact information, also trying to, if we are granted this information, trying to know about your curricula everywhere, trying to see which are the strong points, the challenges, the opportunities of every institution, and hopefully to work together for a, let's say, a bit more like a pan-European perspective on this. Not only because there are also projects of going beyond Europe. But that we'll talk about that maybe in the next episode. Yeah. For now, let's leave it like this. I'm going to give the floor now to Kelly Landerkin from Scuola Cantorum Basiliensis. Kelly, please.
Thank you very much, Isaac, and welcome to everybody. I'm really looking forward to our discussion tonight. As Isaac said, I'm at the Scuola Cantorum Basiliensis in Basel, Switzerland. I had the bachelor's programs as well as the master's in pedagogy and the medieval studies programs of all levels. I'm also the current chairperson of the management team of the school. As a medievalist, I come from a performing background, but also as a researcher and teacher, I focused on monophonic chant traditions and liturgical drama, and more recently, historical music pedagogy. Interestingly, my colleagues in the management team each have different specializations, and therefore we represent the whole gamut of the students at the school. We're a part of the Academy of Music in Basel, but the Scuola itself is fairly self-contained as an institute. It's a pretty immersive environment as we only teach historical instruments, methods, repertoires, theoretical foundations, and performance practices. We have about 200 students and 70 teachers, and I believe that we're not only the largest, but the oldest institute of early music in the world. And we also are connected with a music school that serves about 400 children and amateurs who are also, at least at that particular moment, specializing in early music. The professional school offers various curricula, bachelor's degrees with specializations in earlier and later historical periods, medieval through Renaissance and Renaissance through Romantic, and masters in performance and specialized performance with the same specializations. But also early music pedagogy, improvisation, basso continuo, and music theory. So that was just a brief idea of the school. What are our current challenges and potentials? I'd like to put forward 4 points. First, we've been a pioneer in the establishment of the discipline of early music, but that doesn't mean that we can rest on our laurels. Our venerable age and tradition has earned respect, but it's no longer a reason to come and study at a school. The past is the past. And as my colleagues at all of you at the other institutions can attest, we've all trained fabulous musicians who now teach all over the world in competing schools. It's no longer necessary for people to come to schools like Basel in order to learn early music. But having said that, I think that there are a few places where one can learn it quite intensively. We still hope to attract the people who really want to immerse themselves in the music, and we find that all-rounders are generally fairly unhappy here. But we need to continually reevaluate our curricula. What used to be a unique selling point for our institution may no longer be one. For instance, I'm currently reevaluating the medieval bachelor's program. I'm wondering if we've regimented it too strictly, or is that appropriate for a bachelor's level study? Is this level of specialization even appropriate for a bachelor's degree? It might be that we've become, through our size and structure, a bit too heavy. This is maybe task 1 for us, is to reevaluate this. Task 2, tastes have changed, and a broad acceptance and even enjoyment of historical repertoires and performance practices has led to a democratization, but also in some cases to a superficiality of approach. Obviously not everywhere, but sometimes we encounter a sense of a good enough music culture. So where does that leave us as specialists? 3, how do we engage with the outside world as an academic institution in our proverbial ivory tower? We as musicians are actually predestined to communicate and offer experiences of value to an audience, but we still struggle in our discipline with image and relatability issues. I think if we're to offer a future to our students, we must find new ways of opening ourselves up to the world at large. And 4, how do we remain innovative? For instance, through the combination of research with performance, such as we have a current research project of Vicentino's claviorgano and his 36-tone octave system, or with the new field of spontaneous creation, not that new, with improvisation and contropuntualmente, etc., where listeners are offered a fantastic cultural experience because they themselves are in the moment. But is the music that is being created in the moment always high quality music? So we have to question, what are we offering? What does the audience want? Is it the experience of the moment or the distillation of that experience to its finest principles? And how do we make that possible as a school? It's a risky pathway. So to sum up or to close, I might say our size as a school offers opportunities for immersion, fluency in a musical language, epoch style that supersedes the instrument and its repertoire. And our curricula offer a context for this training. But at the same time, our insularity can create an echo chamber that reinforces our own view of the world. So what I'm hoping to do, I see a big chance in cooperations beyond our own walls, both in the fields of music, performance, and research. Thank you. That's my quick summary of my school.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm going on. I'm Claire Michon. I'm a recorder player teacher, and I'm the coordinator of the early music department at the Pôle Aliénor in Poitiers, in France, where I'm also international relations coordinator and head of pedagogical program. That's a lot of things to do. That's fantastic, but it's a bit heavy. Our school is for sure the smallest and the youngest of the 4 institutions represented in the task force. I will not explain in detail the French higher education music system, but you might know that besides the 2 well-known Conservatoires Nationaux Supérieurs in Paris and Lyon, there are 15 pôles supérieurs. These new higher education institutions have been created in 2008, all of them being much smaller than the 2 big ones, and only 4 of them having an early music department. Furthermore, the French network of music schools and pre-college institutions, regional or departmental conservatoire, is quite rich in early music departments all over France. But let's come back to the Pôle Aliénor. I told you it's a small school, and it indeed is. The school welcomes in total 100 to 120 students in several departments: classical music, early music, traditional music, pop and jazz. Early music students representing about 15 to 20% of the total. What's a quite big average. We offer 2 study programs at bachelor level, a degree in performance linked with a bachelor in musicology at our partner universities, an instrumental and vocal teacher training leading to the state diploma, which is required to teach in music schools. Most of the students combine the 2 programs in 3 or 4 years, and many of them go on for a master's study elsewhere in France or abroad, in The Hague, for example, in the Basel. The Pôle Aliénor is also a partner of a master program in early music in collaboration with the universities of Poitiers and Tours, another city next to Poitiers, and with the Abbaye aux Dames in Saintes. Finally, we also offer continuous professional development courses in music, in dance, and in music and dance. When the school got accredited for the performance program, it might have been decided not to open an early music department. An early music department being indeed an adventure for such a small institution. Many students tend to go to bigger schools where they can extend their network more easily. So how to reach a critical mass? How to finance the instruments that are needed? How to get teachers involved when they have few students? Well, our conviction was and still is that historically informed performance approach is fundamentally a pedagogical approach. In that sense, it's important far beyond the early music world, and the early music community can contribute to keep this pedagogical approach alive. As early music specialists, we consider two main missions, and we try to combine them as much as possible. Train early music specialists and spread the approach more broadly in the school and train tomorrow's teachers. This second mission is now quite well settled in the school through very regular collaboration. Early music teachers are involved in the classical curriculum, for example, in compulsory courses in culture and performance practice for strings, piano, saxophone, brass, through transversal projects, small-scale projects with the string departments and piano department, chamber music, symphonie concertante, Bach cantatas, or bigger events such as a quite non-conventional concert of Venetian music conducted by Peter van Hagen a couple of years ago, including almost all departments of the school: early music, string, brass, saxophone, traditional music, pianists singing and or playing continuo on organ and harpsichord. We also developed a common strategy for buying instruments such as violin, violoncello da spalla, pianoforte is coming this year. And last but not least, since last September, the string department is coordinated by our Baroque violin teacher, Marie Rouquier. What's quite unique, I think. Of course, this organization has positive effects and consequences for the classical student, as well as for the early music students. Open-mindedness, partnership culture, employability. Nevertheless, our main challenges today are linked to our first mission, training specialists. How to organize and improve the early music curriculum for such a small group of students. How to better balance the instruments within this group and increase the number of specialized students. How to organize high-level or highly specialized projects in early music only, I would say. For which kind of job opportunities do we prepare the early music students? And there I'm coming back to Kelly's question of how do we address audiences nowadays? How can we help them building their professional path? Partnerships and collaborations help us to face those challenges, and I will be happy to hear from you if some of you are working in similar context, and to share your thoughts about those challenges and how you respond to them.
Many, many thanks, Claire, and also Kelly. I wanted to give the floor now to Veerle. We had this idea of splitting our presentations. Veerle de Klerk is here in representation of REMA, and she can tell us, well, she will tell us what is the extent of our collaboration and what are the activities that REMA is fostering, on which we are going to have also a little part. Veerle, if that is, yeah?
Thank you, Isaac, and thank you for inviting me here. I will try to share my screen because Agatha, who is also present during this meeting, she prepared a wonderful presentation of what REMA is and what REMA is doing. So I will try to share this with you. Okay. Do you see something? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So thank you. So as Isaac told, REMA opened the network a few years ago from promoters and festival directors only to all professional actors in the music, the early music scene. We have ensembles, we have labels, we have agents, but also, of course, research centers and conservatories, among our members. For the moment, we have like 4 conservatories in our members, but if you count all summer academies and postgraduate centers with performance academies, we have more than 20 members present in REMA. So what are our main objectives? It's to advocate for, you all can read, but I will read it for you, promote early music sector, including concert promoters, what I said, so we opened, and to promote a common and diverse cultural and musical heritage focused on historically informed performance practice of over 1,000 years of repertoire. The aim of REMA is also to support the early music sector in its transition towards more sustainability and engagement. Here you can see a little map of our where are our members coming from. So huge concentration in, well, Middle West Europe, Italy. We are the blue ones are the new members since 2 years, so when we opened up. So a lot of options still in East Europe and the northern part of Europe to discover and to persuade, maybe to become a member of the network. What do we want to do? Best practice sharing, of course. We want to support the actors in sharing best practices, providing resources, capacity building, encouraging cooperation, and sustainable development, very important. REMA wants to support the members in their transition towards more sustainable practices. We have workshops. We want to encourage diversity and green practices, but also fair remuneration and treatments. Advocacy, we talked about fostering diversity, cooperation between members, but also between networks and capacity building. REMA also works for the visibility of early music at the national and international levels. REMA has a lot of partner networks, of which she's a member, like the International Music Council, like the Cultural Action Europe, like Pearl, like Accord Majeur, etc. Of course, we also are a member of the European Network for Conservatories. What are the projects of REMA? Well, of course, well, not the main, but what's very important when you are a network is that you are meeting each other and that you have moments to share thoughts and to work together. So we have, it's not on the slide, but we have a lot of, well, not a lot of, but we have a once a year General Assembly meeting, and we have 3 to 5 live conferences each year. And which range from a sectorial meeting. We have one planned in Cologne at the end of October, one in Dublin the end of November, but also one planned with the AEC in 2024 on education. And all AEC members are welcome to attend these meetings, of course. The Early Music Day is in fact our most important activity towards a public. The 21st of March, I do not have to explain why we chose that date. Everyone can register an event live or online. And we are encouraging conservatories to register their master classes, student concerts, conferences, or other activities related to early music. We have also the Early Music podcast. It's the 3rd season, is ongoing, and will be an introduction to early music for non-specialists. On our website, you can listen to the previous seasons of the podcasts. We have Remarkable, and Remarkable is a support team for young professionals. The first year it was for administrators and artistic directors, second year for festival organizers, and the 3rd year is focused on researchers. We have also the REMA Awards. It's a new version, started in 2022, so we will publish or know the winners of the awards in much more different categories as was before in end of November in Ireland. And there's also a award for educational projects. So we also want to support conservatories in applying for this category of the competition. The next edition will be in 2024. There are also REMA studies made. The first study was dedicated to the 2019-2021 activities of promoters, venues and festivals, and the results will be presented the end of the year on our website. And to end, we organized in 2 years ago, so it was in 2020, I'm sorry, November 2020, the horrible year. We wanted to organize our first European Early Music Summit here in Brussels. We had to rethink the whole summit to an online edition. It had its advantages because we reached like 500 participants from Europe, but also from beyond. There were 3 days of conferences, panels, speed meetings, and so on. And the next summit will be in November, December 23, hopefully in Poitiers and in Bruges in the Concertgebouw. We also will have, during that summit, a moment to a roundtable together with AEC organized. So I would say save the date, 30 November and 1 till the 3rd of December 23. So if you have some questions, please feel free to ask. Agatha, who is also in the meeting here somewhere, I can't see her on my screen, but I will stop sharing. You can contact her for more information. And of course, we have a brand new website where you can find a lot of information. And just a small thing. I'm very happy that Kelly invited me, because when we had these elections in April, we choose to have already in the board and even in the executive board represented this diversity of our organization now. And I'm very happy that Kelly defends and represents very well the conservatives in our executive board. So thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much, Verle. There is already someone wanting to ask a question. Frederick, maybe you want to ask a question?
Yes, in fact, just a practical one. Hello, Verle.
Hi, Frederick.
I'm from the Royal Conservatoire of Brussels, and when we heard, it was 1 year ago, more or less, that the REMA was opening to conservatories, we were immediately thinking of taking part, and I was more or less designed as somebody who could represent with some colleagues our section. But when we saw the files were not very, the application forms was a design for concert organizations. So I was wondering how we could make our application, so to say. Is it a direct contact to take with you then, or do we try to fill in? Because if we have to say how many concerts we organized during the 3 past years or something like that, it's not really our reality, even if we organize plenty of events, of course.
Okay, Agatha, maybe you can answer Frederick.
Yes. Well, of course, it's possible to apply, and you don't have to qualify with concerts and
yes.
festivals. You can either write to me directly or to my colleague Adele.
Yes.
Or there's actually a form on our new website, and you can fill it without giving festivals.
Yes.
So it should be very easy for you to.
Okay, good. Because I then in the 1 year ago, I wrote a small email to to Albert, and he said yes, of course, you should join. And then we just looked at how.
It's fine. It's still possible, and we are very welcoming. So
okay, on which website should I take contact then?
I will write it in the chat if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to give now the floor to Anton Steck, as another of our task force members, presenting himself, his institution maybe, and the issues that he considers worthy of discussion.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentations also, Kelly and Claire. I will make it short for Trossingen. Trossingen is, I'm the Baroque violin teacher there since the year 2000, and the institute is there since 1992, and it has 50 to 60 students. Corona was not really helpful, but I'm telling you nothing new. I guess it's all over the world. It's but we're coming back now with more and more students. So we have all the programs, as what Kelly also mentioned, basically the bachelor, the master, pedagogic things, and the so-called third cycle. Sometimes people call it masterclass. There are different names for this third cycle after the master. We do also have chamber music also as a master, and we do have, of course, a Baroque orchestra. And since also 22 years now, we did opera. We did nice performances also in this original theater in Ludwigsburg next to Stuttgart, which is a fantastic place to go and to see with the original mechanics. And so basically we're doing all repertoire from the really early repertoire until the beginning of 19th century, and that's a thing which gets more and more in the focus. I have sometimes students who come and said, "Oh, I was asked to play in a group with Bruckner Symphony," and they're the problems I find in our early music scene starts to arise in a way, because what in the days when I was studying, the repertoire was quite limited. We did the 17th century, and then we did the 18th century, and Mozart was already a bit woo, and Beethoven no, and too modern. And now it's really going really up to Ravel, or in Belgium there are recordings with Claire Chevalier with Ravel things. I mean, that's outstanding. But for the teachers, that's quite a challenge, and that we have to face in our educational departments, first of all. And also, what kind of instruments? I mean, you can't come up with a Baroque violin to play Bruckner. I mean, this is just not possible. And there's a big gap between the wish and the desire and the collection of instruments. We have to face that, and we have to maybe find sponsors for bigger later pianos and different violins or different wind instruments. I mean, also the whole thing with the pitch. I mean, Bruce Haynes was writing this wonderful book about the history of A. That means we have to rewrite that or not to make a second volume for 19th century, because it would be equally interesting. To have all this Paris pitch was very high at that time, sometimes, and so I'm not going into too much details. That would be one thing, and another subject which really is in my mind, and maybe we could organize once a whole either Quodlibet or even more about alternative concert formats. I always, what I find a little bit obscure, at least, to be nice, if you send the people add then there's either a light show or some computers do funny things, and this is then the new concert format. And I always think, can that be all? or is there or are there many things written in old treatises which we just had overlooked because we had so many things to learn and so many things about articulation, about instruments, about music and whatever. And it was actually in an AUC meeting in Vicenza, and I think it was 2014, if I'm not completely mistaken. I think 2014 in Vicenza. There was Bruce Dickey, and Bruce was had a fantastic presentation about wind instruments in 17th century in a certain church, and he researched about where they were standing, the positioning of those people in that church. And he said at the end of his presentation, if we nowadays stand in a half circle around the organ, we will not have the same sensation the people had at that time. And for me, that was something really touching. One other thing, I was in the audience actually because I was able to go there in Karlsruhe at the Handel Festival. It was Sigrid ter Hooft, who a Baroque choreographer who was responsible for the stage direction, and she said, "Okay, I'm doing this Handel opera without any electricity," and she got, I think, 1,000 candles, but the one which don't drip, you know, you can have a certain brand and she lighted the whole audience and the auditorium and the stage, and it was only candlelight. And the reviewer, this is a concept, you know what I mean? the reviewer, there was a reviewer who made for 20 years bad reviews. This one time he said, "Oh, I didn't want to leave that room. It was so spectacular. It was much more touching than anything else." So what I want to say is we have to go deeply into the sources and to find out about that time, much more about that time, and to bring that on stage again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anton. Well, I will keep it short because there have been already many, of course, many of the issues that I would like to discuss also. In my situation, I don't know if this is also true for Anton, maybe. I don't have any kind of administrative position in The Hague. So this is a difference with Kelly and Claire. I think, Anton, I don't know about you. You're of course, violin teacher, but do you have like additional responsibilities?
Yes, I'm in the Senate and I do many other things. I lead the Baroque Orchestra, lots of organizations, and yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, in my case, what I do at the school, well, first, I work at the Royal Conservatoire of The Hague, which is also like a couple centuries old, of course, or a century and a half. And I think the early music department is around 40 years, something like that, that started to become really active in the 80s, probably earlier already there was something. We have around 125 students. So that is quite large, but it's not getting to the size of Basel, and we have a special, let's say, situation in meaning that we are part of a large generalist institution, and that of course means interaction, more or less interaction, sometimes more, sometimes less, with classical or modern or whatever you want to call it. This is one of the issues that is always interesting. For smaller conservatories, like I think the example that Claire was giving, I really would like that we have the same type of collaboration here, but maybe because the departments are so big, they function a little bit like independent conservatoires, a little bit like separate schools sometimes, and sometimes when the collaboration has to come from the upper, from above, is not always very meaningful, in the sense that I mean, once in a while you can do something with composers, do contemporary music with early instruments, but I think there is more to that than just like writing contemporary music and using a harpsichord or using a gamba for to call it a collaboration. We are also, I mean, that's what Anton was saying. Yeah, the 19th century, the expansion of early music in a way into the 19th century. It's always a question here. There's a strong forte piano department and clarinet and of course strings also get into it, but of course the issues raised by that is like, do you have enough instruments? Do you have like a separate instrument to do it? Different pitch standards, different instruments, even different instruments for the same time, like German or French type of the woodwinds. That becomes really like, it's extremely expensive to do something like that, and you cannot ask the students to spend that money. At the same time, the school always has like we always have a limit in budget, and I have to say we are also facing budgetary limits now in the Hague. There is the situation probably has to do with after pandemics and maybe because inflation, etc. Yeah, I don't know because I don't really have the internal information. But particularly for me as a person, as a teacher, what I do is I teach the theory subjects to the early music department. So the theory subjects means we call it theory, and this is one of the problems, of course, that we call it theory, but it's general musicianship skills like ear training, sight reading, harmony or counterpoint, basso continuo, etc. And for me, it has been a great opportunity. I've been teaching these things for the last decade, and I sort of like made my own curriculum for these things. Basically, we can call it like historically informed pedagogy, if you want. We're dabbling with this terminology. I'm using the term musica practica in general to refer to all those skills, because I think it's the traditional Latin name for this. It is sort of, how solfege and the notation and counterpoint and all these things developed already during the Middle Ages, but there becomes some sort of standard. My curriculum is more or less always based on this idea of cantus planus, contrapunctus, cantus figuralis, and going back always to one of these things, and the extensions of these things into the 17th century and 18th century with partimento, with Italian solfeggi, etc. All these sort of things that I have to say in the last 2 decades, the development of these things has been huge, has been fantastic. Yeah, all these things in a way also connected to the general idea of improvisation, even though improvisation maybe is not the perfect word for this, because actually we're talking about models, memorization of models, variation, connection of models, etc. And for me, the issue now is, now that we have a, let's say, renewed theory, that we don't call it theory anymore. We can call it theory, but it's not theory anymore. My students normally don't have to write counterpoint or this sort of, they have to improvise, they have to use the Guidonian hand, they have to do contrapunto alla mente, partimento, all these sort of things. And so we have a very practical approach to theory, if you want, or to this historically informed musicianship. Yeah? The issue now is what happens with the general structure of the studies, which is still very, very much based on the structure of the classical or modern conservatoire, in the sense that students have a main subject in which they mostly play repertoire, even though they are practicing things like improvisation or levit, etc. My question would be, how can musica practica help to redefine how the main subject is taught, or even, do we really need a main subject? Can we go beyond that? Yeah, and then connecting things to this, like because you see, like many of my students becoming more and more proactive in these sort of things, like taking 2 major instruments or trying to major in something that is a little bit more polyphacetic, so to speak. Yeah, so this is the thing that I'm mostly working on, and together with this, of course, many of the topics that my colleagues have already mentioned, I'm of course connected to these issues also. I think in any case that we have said enough from our part. Yeah, we have said enough. We have put many ideas on the table. I think it would be very nice if we get actually to know what are the interesting or important issues for you, for the audience in this Quodlibet, which is not really supposed to be the audience, it's actually supposed to run the thing, yeah, yourselves. That's why we call it Quodlibet, as you please, or what you will, what you want. So I would like to open the floor directly. If anyone has like some contribution that they want to make right now, you can already start like raising your hands with the Zoom, or directly. If I can see, I don't see everyone in the screen in any case. Yeah? We have a message from Ivor, because he had to go, but he has left his contact information. Thank you very much. I think Claire wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to encourage students who are here to say what they think about that, and to ask questions, to give remarks. Please, students, don't be shy.
Yeah, very good, very good. Maybe we can start asking, how many teachers do we have? Can people that are teachers like raise their hand in Zoom? People who actually have teaching, I can also maybe click the link in your Zoom so we can see how many we have. Not everyone. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, most. It seems that we have a lot of teachers in the Quodlibet today. Yeah. Now, can I ask students who are here to just raise their hands? We have Anna on one place. We have Julia, Constantine. Not so many. So, guys, you can actually take the floor, because
Well,
it's
I see one who couldn't find the hand.
Okay. There's one more person. So at least we have 3, 4 students there. So yeah, as Claire was saying, it's very important for us that we have also input from you. Who wants to break the ice? Anna, go for it.
Hi, I'm Anna. May I introduce myself? I'm at the moment studying at Paul Aliénor, and I'm doing Baroque violin as an excursion to my classical violin training. So I'm originally studying in Detmold, which doesn't have a old music department at all. So I think, like, for me, why I'm here is like the question, like, also like how to connect, like, also early music and like classical music, let's call it like that, and like even contemporary music with each other. I mean, I would like to have like also some inspiration just for myself to what are the possibilities at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anna. Could I ask you maybe, if that is okay, can I ask you just a couple of things? You said that you are doing an early music, like an Erasmus right now, or what is the plan?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you're studying in Paul Aliénor. So Claire, is that a common situation? Do you have like Erasmus students that then they take early music there?
Well, Anna came from, correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, from a master in chamber music in Detmold with classical violin, let's say, modern classical violin. And she already started Baroque violin. So she asked to come just for early music, to deepen early music in her study in 2 semesters here. But I'm not sure, Anna, I understand precisely your question. You are looking for how to connect your practice as a classical player and early music, or you are trying to connect the repertoires. Which sort of opportunities are you looking for?
I'm looking for the opportunity, actually, like how to, like, as you said, like the first thing, like I would like to connect like my classical training, let's say, like the advantages of the classical training with the advantages of the early music training, because I see also like that there are that many people, for example, even in chamber music and normal like classical music training, everybody has his or her own standpoint, and I think, for example, if the communication gets like better there, like that everybody's like talking to each other, and that just telling what is your standpoint and get like some inspiration from that, that would be really interesting. So I mean that's what you and like all the other like are here for. So yeah, exactly.
Go, Anton, go.
Yeah, thanks. Anna, hi. It's very interesting. You know, the thing is, I met so many people in so different combinations, some who dedicated just for Baroque violin, others, they are modern players, but they want to know a little bit, other ones half and half, and so in all kinds of combinations. But basically, if you take it serious, it's really fruitful in any direction. You will profit from both sides in a very good way, musically and also technically, because there are some techniques in a Baroque world, let's say, which are so important also actually for other performances you might need in other styles, and vice versa. So I personally think you should really intensively go your way and find good teachers, and ask the teachers the precise questions, what you want to have, what you want to have technically and musically. It's the more you know what you want, the more you will profit from what the teachers are saying. You know, this is always it's rather that way around. Don't wait if the teacher tells you something. Just go actively there and say, look, this sounds like that, but I don't want to have it that way. I want it another way, but I don't know which way. So, but keep it open and keep ask the right questions, and that's the most important thing.
I do.
Verle, go for it. Take the.
Yes. Thank you, Anna. I just wondered. I think it was Kelly who said that they were like rethinking about the grade of specialism of the education. Do you have also this impression that you need a broader education in your speciality in violin playing, but that you as a student would have, because now you take this initiative by yourself to go on Erasmus, to search for this other methods to play a violin. Do you would have liked as a student that it is like part of your education, that this Baroque violin playing is just part of it, only if it's like for 6 months or a year, but that it's like part of the formation as a violinist player?
Yes, definitely. For me, it's a huge thing actually, because like in Germany especially, I see that there's a lot of specialization to like just one point. For example, in this case, violin playing. So the problem for me is like that I'm like always interested in everything, literally. So and I want to know everything. So if you are kind of that person, I did it like that, and I mean I have a great teacher who supported me for all the time. And yet she told me like to study pedagogics actually as well, as well as my artist diploma. So I did that actually. So I got now a really broad horizon, but I can imagine that like people who are can be quite unhappy with this, because obviously when you want to like be just an artist and not pedagogue, for example, as well, there you can face really many problems actually. So yeah, and why I did the Erasmus is like, it's exactly the reason you were telling about. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous, like talking in front of so many people. Anyway, so yeah, that is it exactly. So I just wanted to get like new flavors, also like with the languages. I mean, it's good to have more languages, more input. I'm always looking for input. I mean, I think that there are like so many types of people in a like big system you can't like really take care of, and that is for me the problem. So obviously there's probably a system for everyone, but you need to find it and like check out the opportunities. And I think like this networking thing is like a really big point, especially because I think like every school is just thinking that like their system is the best system, and like the student need to adjust to that system but I think it's like the other way around, that I think like that especially also teachers and like schools have to like look for possibilities like to connect and like find for the student the best solution. That's my opinion. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, maybe it's interesting to know the other students. Do they share this idea of Anna, or what's your impression about your actual education now?
Or if they don't want to start speaking, we can make the question a bit broader also for our colleagues. I find many times that it's students that are finding their way through the school, and that are finding the ways also for collaborations, like, or for going across two systems and trying to find the best of both. Don't you think like also in a way that's also the student's role to make us see this sort of thing? Because I don't know for the situation of each school, but it's not so easy to have the collaborations between the different specialities, between the classical department and the early music department in terms of teachers. Yeah, I'm always like wondering if you have like a modern violin teacher and an early violin teacher. Do they really collaborate? Do they really talk to each other even? And even more, yeah, like in other specialties it can become even more difficult or less, depending, like singing, for example, like having the specialists. Yeah, so many hands raised. Let's maybe start with Johannes, because he didn't speak yet so far.
So welcome to all. Thank you for the invitation. I raised my hand, and I can put it down again. I raised my hand because I ended up at a very, I don't want to say weird department or weird situation, but somehow yes. So I'm maybe from the youngest department among all here. I'm working at the MDW at Vienna. So the Institute of Early Music is now 2 years old, so it's a baby still. And I came there 3 years ago, fresh for building up with the colleagues together this institute. And I thought, well, it's interesting to build up a new institute, an institution that sounds interesting and amazing, and from nothing, more or less, or whatever. Then you arrive at this university. First, you realize, oh, wow, we have around about 1,500 people working there. So I meet every day a new colleague since then. We have, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 students. I don't know exactly how many. In the first week, I start counting the historical keyboard instruments, and I realized, it's around about 50 or 60 historical harpsichords, Hammerflügel, organs, whatever. I thought, so interesting for a university without an early music department having 50 harpsichords. and not bad shit. I mean, really, no? Then I realized, oh, there's an original Rosenberger Hammerflügel. There's an original Flügel from 1824, original Kirkman harpsichord, and round about 12 violins from the from the 16th to the 18th century in Baroque fitting or Renaissance fitting. This is weird. And then I understood slowly what the Vienna way was. And if you go back to the 50s, Vienna started very actively being in early music, like Paul Hindemith, Hanun Kur, Melkus, etc. performed one of the first Orfeo performances worldwide, etc. And also Gustav Leonhardt was there as a harpsichord teacher. But then somehow it melted into the whole music industry of Vienna. Maybe it's not fair, but I think the idea was, why to learn a special instrument like Baroque violin if you learn violin? If you learn violin, you can also play Baroque violin. And this was somehow a little bit for decades, I think, the idea of the big university in Vienna. So you're on one of the oldest conservatoires worldwide. So Vienna is one of the oldest and one of the biggest, and there's no early music department up to 2021, which is weird somehow. And of course, at a certain point, the Rectorat said, well, that should not be longer possible because it's too many early music activities going on at the school, and let's bundle it and make an early music department now, which they did. And so now we are a 2-year-old department, and we have some bachelor and master studies for historic instruments, which are really specialized only. And this is around about 60 students, let's say now. But the funny thing is, if I count all students at the university who have single lessons at a historical instrument, it's around about 150 students. So we have around about 150 students with single lessons permanently on a historical instrument, because, which I needed months to understand, that in a lot of curricula during the last 20 years, my colleagues who always worked there start to introduce early music subjects into the normal curricula, which means we have the situation now that imagine all students from the modern instrumental philharmonic department. I mean, Vienna University is directly connected with the Vienna Philharmonics. Half of the professors are playing in the orchestra, etc. So that's a clear style, very not early music style, but very clear and very strong. And the quality is high, I have to confess. Yeah, I cannot say this. I mean, the brass department, the modern brass department, I never have seen this a brass niveau like this. This is incredible. Yeah, incredible. So all of them, all students have at least 2 semesters in early music. All. So they have 1 semester every week, 2 hours, introduction to early music, where they have a kind of seminar lecture about all the main subjects in early music, like pitch, historical temperaments, ornamentation from the 16th to the 18th century, etc., etc. And then a second semester with like ensemble and chamber music on the modern instruments, but under the guidance of a historical informed professional from the department, which makes the department incredibly various and complicated. And I just pray to God, take me out of this incredible big mess and put me to Basel or Trossingen, whatever, where I have just this little bit nutshell around. But then are also days like the last weeks, which are incredible. For example, there was a recording on one of the historical organs here from 1642, a CD recording with Julian Zimmermann and Jean-François Madeuf with natural trumpets without holes. And half of our modern trumpet students were also on the CD playing the Baroque trumpet, because here in Austria, they started playing the Baroque trumpet when they were 15 or 16 with Andreas Lackner or Wolfgang Geisberg. So crazy. So we have 3 or 5 Baroque normal trumpet students who play professionally the Baroque trumpet. This is a situation which is very unique. Half of our, or let's say much more than half of our Baroque violin students do not study Baroque violin. They have it as a minor subject in their modern studies if they want to. And this is sometimes complicated because, of course, when they start at the beginning, some of them cannot imagine how much investment it needs to get really into Baroque music and an instrument. So I have to say, well, 20% will do some semesters and then they will never touch a Baroque instrument, probably. But the majority of them rises to a very nice niveau And we offer a lot of instruments to borrow for that. So we have a big instrumental pool, which is necessary because you cannot ask the students to buy all these instruments. And there's also, for example, a lot of studies who have in the curriculum this historic instruments. So you study bachelor piano chamber music, so modern piano chamber music. But in the curriculum you find, if you want, Hammerflügel for 2 or 4 or 6 semesters. Also in the master chamber music. All of the string players in the master chamber music have historically informed string coaching from one of our Baroque violin teachers. So it's a crazily big thing going on. And sometimes I lose really, because I have per semester, I'm connected and have to do with around about 200 students, with in different roles. But there are surprising results out of that. So if the people who study, because maybe I have to say something before. Before I arrived in Vienna, I was totally convinced that a concept like Basel is just the best and should everywhere be like that. Because I hated this mix up somewhere, because I came from myself in the mixed situation, and I thought it's perfect to have this nutshell to concentrate, to dive deep into that. Then I landed in Vienna in this big thing, and I thought, oh my God, I did not imagine that it's like that. And after a while, I understood somehow this is also a reality in this world. So I think at the end, there will be the different departments with different approaches. And we have such nice results. At the moment, the last week, one of our bassoon students who studies modern bassoon in his master's and does the Baroque bassoon and the Dulcian parallelly just for fun. He was asked by the Royal Academy of London to come there and play all the Bach cantatas with Peter Wheeler, because they didn't have one who could play it. So this was a weird situation. Our minor subject Baroque bassoon player flies to London with the Elton John fund to play their Bach cantatas with the London Royal Academy. And Maggie Folters was very grateful that we sent a guy. So this is a niveau you can reach parallelly to the modern instrument. This is just an example. So even if it's complicated, it can have very interesting results. And if the people really want to dive in more, of course, they should specialize after this modern status if they want to. And just a last word, at the moment, a new curriculum discussion is going on in the modern department. And I'm extremely nervous, because the last information what we got, because they don't really talk to us, it's very weird. And it seems that this very successful development, they want to kill. So I saw the first sketches about the new curricula, and early music was kind of like poof. And I thought, so, well, this is crazy, yeah? They build up 20 years, something which is really working, yeah? So more and more, and produces really interesting musicians who are flexible, and also some of them who really go on with the Baroque instrument and further. And then they want to kill it. So now I'm not sure if I should start a fight and use my energy to avoid this development, or if I just say, well, if they do it, fine, then I will end up in my little early music nutshell at the MDW, and maybe it's also fine. So just a short image from a department which is 2 years old and has around about 200 students.
Thank you very much, Johannes, for sharing your situation, because it's extremely interesting. It's extremely interesting. I have a colleague of mine that started to work there in Vienna, and I didn't know anything about what was the situation, and now I understand a bit better. And this way of collaborating, it's another perspective yet. Yeah. So you can have students that are actually having, in general, a more mainstream kind of formation, but they have access to everything. They have access to everything. That is actually very good if they keep having access to that. Let's go in order. I think we can do Kelly, then Anna, then Konstantin, maybe.
I'll keep myself very brief, because I'm the least interesting person of the three of us, I think. But I'm just curious. I was also really interested in your description of what's happening in Vienna. This seems to be, it was until you mentioned that they might kill the program, it sounds like it's the opposite of what's happening in most schools now. There was a really big push to establish an early music department, and now it's in question. But my question was, do you have an accompanying theory department? Your examples were mostly practical, which is super interesting how you've developed that.
well, maybe I can short answer that the others have not to wait. Yes, of course. I mean, the university is so big. There is more than one theory department. A lot of the colleagues in the theory department are very, very professional in early music. So Markus Grassl, Melanie Unselt, Maria Helfried, etc. So musicologists who are deep into Renaissance. There's this Senfel edition project also at the MDW. There was a trombone research project about trombone measurements some years ago with the dissertation at the end. So it's very weird. So there's a lot of early music things going on, and some of our colleagues offer now the third semester like contrapunto elemente just for fun, yeah. And funny wise, yeah, you offer contrapunto elemente and you have a full class and people are interested and go there. And this the guy who teaches this, he's one of the theory teachers of the modern department, and he talked to myself and he said, Johannes, the problem is I teach this typical music theory style for 25 years now at the modern department, like everywhere, like you mentioned it before, Isaac. And he says, on the hand, he said, I'm absolutely not convinced anymore that makes a sense anymore, also for the modernist department. He says, this is super nonsense. And then if he brings it up into the discussions about the curricula, he's absolutely, no, it was always like that. That's why it was always like that. It's this typical thing that you think no, it's just the last 50 years like that. Yeah, the 500 years before it was not like that. But it will not happen. Yeah, it will not happen that there will be a kind of a musica pratica going on in the whole department. And our department at the beginning was too small somehow to introduce an own music theory plan, like in Basel or in Lyon, for example, where you have this musica pratica thing, or meanwhile in Graz also. Because the problem is, in Graz, for example, a smaller department, they have their own way to do this musica pratica only for the early music department. The result then is, and this is also a weird thing, then you have no contact anymore at all in a subject between the modern department there and the historical department. You can do that, but then you have this thing. In our case, when they founded the department, of course, they used also the normal music theory subjects for the cembalo and recorder bachelor and masters, etc., which is, from a historical perspective, not the perfect way to do it, but it's a practical way and has the advantage you get a mix, people get to know each other, and you have a more interactive situation. But yes, of course, if I can just cite my colleague from the modern department, it would be just perfect also for the whole university to switch to musica pratica like we have done it for 500 years, because this is also what you need. If you see Wagner or Verdi or whatever they do, I mean, it's also based on the basic principles, and you should learn the basic principles. And what they learn is music theory, as you said, Isaac, theory. It stays in the theory. They learn basso continuo on the table, yeah? They fill out numbers and write notes, and they cannot play basso continuo. What a strange situation. Welcome to the modern world. I stop now because I'm getting engaged. You feel that? So.
It's great to hear. It's great to listen to you, Johannes. It's great. Yeah, Anna, you wanted to say something. Go for it.
Yeah, maybe directly to that. I mean, I see like completely the same for myself. I mean, I can just talk to myself and like maybe some of my friends, because I don't have any experience in networking. But the thing is, like, it's like also in Germany, I mean, or in Detmold, where I come from, there is a really theoretical approach to, like, for example, let us say music theory. So it's you get it like, I don't know, it's like a bit like fast food. You get it, you eat it, and then it's yeah, you have eaten something, and then you have like the base principles. So for me personally, it was like that. I had questions about that. I wanted to know, why is it like that? Why is this certain thing like that? So the modern theory doesn't give you the answers to that question, the modern approach, for me personally. So yeah, that's what I also really appreciate about the old music, like early music way of doing it. It has a deeply practical approach. So I think that many professors don't see that it's like another approach of thinking, just like the early music, and that like it's like a complementation to the like traditional way of teaching music. So I think that I think it's somehow wonderful that like everything was melting in Vienna, and like at your university. I think it's really great that also like the classical people are open to early music. That's not always the case. For
That's
example,
not the case with a lot of professors at the house, I have to
and
say.
that,
But there are connections, yeah. But it's not as easy. If you know the Vienna Philharmonic style, then you will understand that as not normal to have this.
I have friends studying in Vienna, so yeah, I heard about it quite a bit. Yeah, no, and that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. It's like yeah, mostly like students are very open for it somehow, but there are just a few like professors who are open to that as well, and there are like really deep conservative professors who are saying like, to say concretely and a bit rudely, that like early music is complete. Okay, I won't say the word, you can imagine what it is, but yeah, so I think that has to change, that like we have like also in the teaching stuff like more open-minded people who are like not really just teaching what their ego is telling them to do, so but like to think about like how can we like maybe educate a student that like to find their own ways and their own approach of music making, how I told earlier already. Because the thing is like I think in today's world it's not like that you just play your violin 8 hours a day and then you will get in, maybe for me as a violinist, a tutti player in an orchestra, but you need to find your really own way to get an authentic way of music making, to really being able to stand that hard music business, if I had to say that. It's like that in reality, unfortunately.
Thank you, Anna. I think we have other remarks or questions, so maybe we should go on because the time is quite short now.
Let's go to Konstantin, maybe.
Yes, I also want to try to keep it short. With the situation of in Vienna with the classical music department, do you have, is it on the other side with them, is it this idea that when you are learning another instrument, then your main instrument is not becoming good enough for the classical circus, or is it maybe that? Or because I know from my I was in Bavaria once in a youth orchestra, and we had a violin student, modern, and it was a Baroque orchestra where we played, and she had to leave the weekends earlier because she was not able to tell her modern teacher that she also plays Baroque violin. That threatening. So do you think it's that? And
I can answer it quickly. I mean, it's you have both realities. So especially the modern violin department is very different. So there are professors, especially in the pedagogic department, like Professor Thomas Fyodorov, who is a modern violin player, but also plays the Baroque violin, was concertmaster at the Concertos, etc., things like that. It's also reality. You have Professor Christoph Peham, it's the modern horn professor at the modern department, the big Konzertfach department at Vienna. He's an excellent natural horn player on recordings of Giardino Monico to hear, etc. So Christoph Peham is one of the examples. Almost all his students can play the natural horn, of course. For him, it's normal. But then you have also violin professors when the students choose for Schwerpunkt Alte Musik, where they have additional Baroque violin lessons with the Baroque violin. The situation that my colleague teaches the Baroque violin for the students, and there's at a certain point, a young person appears in the room and stays there and watches. And then the teacher says, "Who are you?" Yeah, he's the assistant of the modern professor, and he was just to say that the modern professor is not very happy with this disturbance of the let's say, focusing on the modern instrument. So it also goes to this extreme, as you said. So there are teachers, I don't want to say that they mean it badly, but they mean it exactly as you say. They see the Baroque instrument as losing practice time for the modern violin. And I think that the students have to decide. I think the students have to learn to be strong enough to understand what I want. As Anton said, I have to understand what I want, where I want to go. And then they have also to be strong enough to say that teachers are, I want this because I like this. Yeah? This is the way it goes. But it's really, it's becoming less. So these kind of professors are becoming less, to be very clear.
And I had a wonderful conversation with a roommate here. She's studying modern horn. And I was talking to her that I had with another friend a conversation that this type of music somehow cannot survive. Like classical orchestras are dying already since 50 years, and recordings might be substituted also by artificial intelligence, just as a perspective, proper or a possible perspective. And she was angry at me and told me to never talk again to her about that topic because she's so scared by it. So, but indeed, do you think this way of classical music could at all survive? I could, for example, never imagine myself when I study harpsichord or organ, not knowing how to play a church service simply because it's an easy thing with Musica Practica to fill a church service, and it's good money, you know.
Just short to answer. Well, you said the modern orchestra are dying. This is much more complicated because try to get a ticket for the Vienna for the Vienna Philharmonics in the Staatsoper. It's fully booked out. Try to get a ticket in Berlin at the Philharmonie if they play Beethoven. It's fully booked out. So this is just not true. It's some smaller houses, some smaller orchestras have big problems, and yes, that's true. But on the international perspective, I don't see the situation that the modern orchestras die. Also, film music, etc. There's still a lot going on. I'm not part of this modern circus, so I'm also a little bit wrong person to tell you what's happening there because I'm not touched by it. I'm just not.
Just because that were maybe the two most famous orchestras of Europe. I had a small concert once with the Netherlands Bach Society, actually this spring. The Tivoli in Utrecht, it was filled to a third. And it was these famous trumpet players from England were coming in. Rudolf Lutz was coming in to conduct, and it's the Netherlands Bach Society. It's not the last chamber orchestra behind the mountains.
Good. Sorry to interrupt this dialectics here. Yeah, I think we should give the voice to Päivi because there was a hand raised for a long time already, and we didn't get anything from there yet.
No problem. I'm really happy that I joined this because I got the message from the department head of the early music department at the Sibelius Academy in Helsinki, at the University of the Arts Helsinki. And actually, I don't work at the early music department anymore because I work at the doctoral school of the classical music department at the moment. So, and we have lots of early music doctorates already, and they keep coming. So, I have some contact, and I do some artistic panel work also in the early music department these days. But I found this ideas about what happened in Vienna really interesting, because I think that we are sort of in the middle of Basel and Vienna, that we have this we have a separate early music department, and we have a lot of harpsichord players, recorder players, lots and lots of baroque violin players, string players, other string players as well, but there is also this other side, which is that I think that somehow the feeling is that early music is part of a musician's sort of general knowledge, that it's not something that you sort of switch into, but it's something that belongs to everybody. All string players should know something about it, and they should be allowed the opportunity to try the instrument and have lessons and play chamber music and read historical notation and things like that. So we are trying as much as possible to sort of integrate these sort of two sides, so that the early music wouldn't be some reservation part of the world where they are working on very, very old music. And so there are still, also at the Sibelius Academy, there are still professors and teachers who think that you just need to practice the 8 hours in the room, and then you will become sort of the master violin player, and then you will have work forever. But I don't think that's sort of the general atmosphere anymore. It has become clear that early music is part of the mainstream in Finland, I would say. It sounds quite a lot to be said, but it is. And we have sort of like violin players who do lots of contemporary music and a lot of early music, and they do both very well. And they also sort of, they work as professionals in both areas. So I'm looking forward to a new kind of music professional. Not everybody needs to be that. We need to have those people who are focused just on this, but also thinking about work opportunities and the fierce competition that the area is suffering from. I think that it's responsible to offer the students sort of different routes that they can follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it makes, of course, a lot of sense. We're approaching the end of this meeting because we thought we were going to be like 1.5 and 7:30. We don't have to cut it like with a knife. So there was, I think, Anton wanted to say something, and we can also listen to some other person if you want to say. Just wanted to, maybe we can make a little bit of a summary saying that the conversation has gravitated towards the interaction between the classical world and the early music world, mostly. Yeah, what we discussed today. There are many other topics that we could have discussed or that we will discuss in the future. Even if we don't cut it like now, like some people are already going, just to keep in mind, let's try to keep in contact and give also ideas on things that you want to discuss, because we can focus a whole Quodlibet on a specific topic if you want. But there was, I think Anton wanted to say something before.
Yeah, thank you, Isaac. The thing is, we have to see both things in Vienna. That's a special situation with the Philharmonics. I had a student, her father was in the Philharmonics, or is in the Philharmonics. That's a very special thing. But the one thing we say, we have to allow people to focus on many things at the same time, or specialize in the early music, but we also have to accept that some people have or want to specialize in their other modern world. I mean, we should not do the same mistake what many of the modern teachers do. So we have to be open, but ideally, I think it was you before what you said, that was really very nice, that we have to be open and to let people decide what they want. And what I said to Anna before, you have to, the musicians nowadays should become, or have to be much stronger than maybe before. They shouldn't get fed with the information. They should say, I want this information, I want the other information. One last thing I want to add in parentheses, more or less, what I have the feeling is really a danger is for instance some formats like Spotify. I can hear, I'm not on that, but some people, there are recordings on the market. We thought nobody will listen to that anymore because but now since there are more than 50 or 70 years not anymore played, they have a revival. If you type in A minor violin concerto of Bach, you get recordings. You said, oh my God, we don't want to listen to that anymore. And we thought in this early music scene, we thought we sort of erased these recordings, and they now come up because they are free to listen to. And this I find as a very dangerous moment where we have to. I mean, in the 1990s, I was living in Cologne in Germany. In this area, 200 kilometers around, Bach cantatas could not be played with modern instruments anymore. But this times change into another direction. So we have to really watch out to fight for our goals.
There's of course something to be said about listening to recordings or critical listening to recordings, because recordings are always there. So maybe that is even a topic to train students with, like how to listen to things, how to critically listen to recordings, because some of them can have like very good merits in some aspects and others, yeah, etc. Kelly raised her hand.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, I think that that's actually our job in the conservatories, is to offer a context for what we're listening to and for this critical reflection. But I think Anton's point was fabulous. There is so much that we are receiving now, and the question is, how can we take it? It's like anything. It's like the news as well. We need to find a way to offer it a context.
Okay, so it's 7:35. I'm afraid we have to close the session, this first Quodlibet of the new season. It was a pleasure for me to see all of you here and to listen to what you have to say. It's always too short. But I think it is better to keep it too short than to go too long on the other side. We're not going to give a preview of what's coming, but there's going to be one other Quodlibet next month, and there's going to be another one in December, and these things are already planned. We're going to have topics that have to do with storytelling and music, with a strong connection with medieval music, and we're going to have also a strong connection with one of the topics that was today there, the historical pedagogy of music. That would be more in December. I would say, first of all, thank you everyone. I would also say stay in tune to get our updates, and I would like to see as many of you as possible the next time. Maybe one of you guys wants to say something to close. Anton, Claire,
yes.
Kelly.
Oh, it's not to close, but it's just please forward to your colleagues and students and staff the information about the Quodlibet, because, well, such a meeting is fine, but it would have been fine also with more participants. And so don't hesitate to share information.
Then maybe we can say bye-bye. I see you in the next Quodlibet.